All right, and just so everyone knows, we are now live streaming on YouTube. And I see a representative from Real Estate and Records has joined or is joining. Ava, can you hear us? Ava, are you able to hear us? You'll need Real Estate and Records to acknowledge you can hear me. Okay, I see a thumb up. You don't have a microphone? If that is the case, you can communicate via chat. Is Jennifer joining? Hold on, I'm going to call her. All right, we have Ashley Gibbons here with Real Estate and Records.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you. Is Jennifer joining?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think we have some audio issue, but I'm here, Jen's here, and Ava's here as well.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and then take roll call, starting with the people I think are here. City Planning Commission is present. Parks and Parkways.
Hey, yep.
Present. Department of Public Works.
Here.
HDLC. Tracy is still with us.
I'm still here.
All right. And Sewage and Water Board. Joyce. And
Here.
and Emily, or no, Emily's DPW. All right, so we'll call a meeting to order. This is the September 22nd, 2021 Planning Advisory Committee meeting under the authority granted in Act 302 of the 2020 regular legislative session. City Planning Commission certifies that it will convene Planning Advisory Committee meeting on this date via teleconference to hear matters that are critical to the continuation of the business of the commission that cannot be changed. All efforts we've made to provide for observation input by members of the public. I will be putting up on the screen the public comment form at the break so that any members of the public can comment. It is also available on the City Planning Commission agenda now under calendars and agendas. So you can go ahead and comment. Call to order. Roll call has been done.
I've arrived post roll call. Jen
Very good.
Kretschmann. Sorry about my technical problem.
No problems. The order of business will be as follows: the staff presentation, followed by questions from members. Then we will take a recess, read any public comments received, then more questions from members, and we will vote on the first 3 items of the agenda, the CPC items, and the non-CPC items. We will not vote on. We're just taking input of the departments on that one. So the first item is a request for the sale of a paper street named So Lane between Ruck Street and Copernicus Street that is adjacent to 2020 Farragut Street in the 5th Municipal District in the Prop Camas Summit Subdivision Square 1. And I will be putting up, Jennifer, would you rather have the survey of 2020 Farragut or the So Lane survey up first?
The So Lane survey.
Am I pronouncing that right?
I don't know. Is it like AUX, like go
Yeah.
taxes or whatever?
All right, now y'all should be able to see on screen at this time a copy of an old survey. And Jennifer, you want to give us the introduction on this one?
Sure, and then you could probably switch over to Mike and Avery, who are here for the applicant. So we're looking at the area of So Lane between Copernicus and Ruck that runs adjacent to this property that I think now fronts on Farragut. This is just showing us way back when the street was dedicated in the late 50s as part of Lauradale or as part of Craft Place. So you can go to the other survey, and then I will turn it over to Mike and Avery to talk about this request.
All right, so I will pull up the other survey. All right, Mike and Avery, take it away.
Sure, thank you. So Avery's with us on speaker. Becca and I are here in the office. So this is the beginning of a historic rehabilitation of a great old Gatsby-esque looking house. We have a zoning change or a conditional use probably forthcoming to make this neighborhood bed and breakfast or hospitality. The house is being saved. It was recently acquired. It's uninhabitable, and we're working through some BBSA issues right now relative to elevation. It's got a fabulous oak alley type tree canopy in the front with tremendous green space, kind of a congregation point for the neighborhood. So the developer still is finalizing his site plan. There's also some housing he'll be doing in the immediate vicinity, for sale workforce housing product in a bunch of vacant lots that he's acquired in this immediate vicinity. So it's a pretty cool project. On this particular site, the reason for acquiring the street is so that he can focus access and the rear along with parking and preserve all of the green space in the front of the structure between Farragut and the structure as green space that is only pedestrian and not vehicular. Also, just it was unkempt for a long period of time. He's now just maintaining it. So trying to acquire it would be in his interest to have a kind of a better site plan to do the project.
How do
And
they
that
access?
he wants the actual, like the entire section between Copernicus and Ruck, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's adjacent to his structure.
Does he own those other lots? 128 through 135?
Paul, I want to confirm that before confirming that with you. He does.
And so would he be,
Oh, hang on a second, Paul. I'm trying to cross-reference lot numbers, and I'd rather circle back to you and confirm that. I do not think he has. So short answer is no. I see the lots you're referring to,
uh-huh,
and I'm trying to cross-reference them with the municipal addresses that we have. So the answer is yes on all of those. We're on property viewer.
I'm sorry. So he does,
He does own them all, yes.
Okay.
He owns 100% of them, correct.
So how does he access 2020 Farragut now?
Yeah, so the way he accesses it now is through Copernicus. So you would take Farragut, make a right turn onto Copernicus, and that's where the entry is.
He goes through lot 128?
That's correct.
Huh. Um, So,
Ms. Tika, I just have a quick question. It looks like there's several other lots that also face. If he's just talking about the part that's immediately adjacent to his property,
That's,
because there's several other, properties
yeah,
on the riverside that look like they face onto or whatever the name of it is, Camus.
Yeah. Are you saying So, or are you saying Lauderdale? Are you asking about the ones on So? He's adjacent to everything that he is looking to purchase. There are properties that front So, that's the part of So that's an actual street, and those are not part of this
Okay.
request. The grassy area that's part of this is between Ruck Street and So, where So is an actual street, where So is only a paper street.
so the request says sale of the paper street named So between Ruck and Copernicus. Are we talking about the entire right of way then between Ruck?
We
and
are,
Copernicus?
yes.
So he would not, those lots that he also owns would no longer front a public street?
So I think I see maybe a point of clarity here. There's two Copernicuses. Copernicus is not interconnected. So the Copernicus we're talking about is the one that you have shown right now on the screen, Paul. If someone is looking at Property Viewer or something else, Copernicus does continue on the other side of So Lane. And that is not a request that's before the PAC today. So Copernicus is a real street, not a paper street in both sections. And then So is a real street, not a paper street, when you are on the river side of Copernicus. So all of the properties,
Basically dead ends there, right?
it does, correct.
And so the area that you're really looking at is the paper portion.
100%, only the paper portion. So the only other properties that touch this paper street, 100% of them have access on Lauderdale Drive and front Lauderdale Drive. And there is a solid fence line on the paper street. So those are the rear yards of the properties on Laureldale. Perfect, that's helpful.
I think what Paul is suggesting is that maybe the re-subdivision has to take place before well, maybe
We would-
not.
We would absolutely re-subdivide though, because this needs to be re-subdivided into a single lot of record to eliminate all the individual lots as part of our zoning request. And we would be happy to do that as a requirement, a proviso, or a condition precedent to any acquisition of the paper street if y'all do choose to move this forward.
Yeah, that's indeed what I was getting at. The subdivision regulations wouldn't allow for the existence of all these other lots fronting unless they fronted on a public or private street.
Yep, we are not proposing any series of servitudes to front any lots on a private street. 100% would front on a public street.
So I think what we're saying is there might need to be two subdivisions, one to create one lot that fronts on Copernicus, 2020 lot, the whole thing fronting on Copernicus. Then the disposition of So Lane paper, and then a third subdivision where you subdivide the paper into your bigger lot. Is that what we're suggesting, Paul? Kind of how we did with front.
Well, I lost the names of the streets on here. Let's see.
Jen?
Where is
Yeah.
Copernicus?
Okay, if you look, well, see how So comes down and it touches the 220 properties that we've got highlighted? There's an 1830 property that also faces So. So we're not talking about selling that. It's 1830, I think, that faces So.
Is it this one with the cursor or?
No, down one, up. There you go. 1880, maybe 1880. I can't. Old lady
This
eyes.
is
Down
1880.
one,
I
Paul.
guess we're
That one
talking
right there.
about
That's
from Copernicus. Right, so, but we'd be talking from the Copernicus down here, closer to 2020 Farragut, not from the Copernicus that's up there. So this back area, that's not a good way to describe it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, when we say from Copernicus to Ruck, we're talking about the corner of that lot that where
1880.
right.
Okay, from the corner down, even though that street doesn't look like it's paved. Ouch. In front of 1880. I mean, practically paved.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think, Louis? Was he still here?
Okay, I'm back. It's all right.
Is it paved at all in front of at the dead end? Is that an issue? Is that
The
area?
dead end it doesn't look like it.
It's just
I mean, it looks like an unpaved street. Socks back there. Let's see.
Looks like they have access from Copernicus though. If that's,
There is a dead end coming from Copernicus. I mean, Copernicus doesn't go all the way back there, right? Well, I see. This is other piece of Copernicus. Yes, I mean, there is a section. You wouldn't sell it all the way to Copernicus, but you would sell it from that dead end, right?
I'm giving thumbs up from that would be our request from the dead end. Exactly what Louis said.
From the dead end to Ruck.
So yeah, so the rest, I mean,
Ooh, don't put your mouse down lower though. There you
here,
go. Yep.
Right there. Yep, where the mouse is. Okay.
and then the 1880 would still have access either from the paper street of So, or if that is all one property, from Copernicus on the other side, like a through lot.
right. Yeah, it's all paper. It was never built from what I can see.
And Mike, this is quite this large lot. Is it just the applicant's intention to have a wonderfully large estate size lot?
Yeah, it's the concept's hospitality, neighborhood scale hospitality here. And we've had some really successful community engagement meetings so far. We'll probably start the official NPP pretty soon. for a conditional use. And
Bed and breakfast or,
yeah, it looks like we might have to trigger the hotel actually to allow for all the ancillary uses. And there'd be an addition of a second structure, which would be for indoor, and a small indoor event hall.
how would that happen with the zoning of HURD1?
We have I'd rather not bog this down. We do have a zoning path, and we've met with a colleague of yours on this. And we have a twofold path on this one.
Okay. So a zoning change would, or some zoning action would also take place.
Yes.
Well, we haven't heard from Sewage and Water Board and DPW with respects to any utilities that might be under the right of way.
LaJoyce?
Okay,
Hey.
there is a sewer that comes from, was it the northern part of Copernicus? No, by 120, was it 126A, like coming from there? Well, coming from Copernicus and at least in the paved sections, but I'm not exactly sure how far that sewer comes down. So are there any plans? And there's also a water. Is there any plans for any utilities or in that location, and that street will be private?
So we do have an engineer on board. There is not a utility plan, and would be more than happy to keep utility servitudes in favor of the Sewage and Water Board and DPW for anything you have now or would want to have in the future.
LaJoyce, it's not going to be a private street. It's going to be
Okay.
re-subdivided. It's going to be re-subdivided into this estate, we're going to call it, I guess,
Okay.
for the bed and breakfast, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be driving on it as a throughway, correct?
That would be the goal.
So would Sewage and Water Board need a servitude full width for what is now so?
So this, you're saying that this street is not going to be private?
You know, the idea would, it would be private. It would not be a street anymore. Is that right? Mike?
Yeah, it would be private, and it would be primarily paved where for internal circulation. But not proposed as a public street and not proposed as a private street with servitudes of access for anyone. It's just part of the lot.
There might be a driveway on it.
That's it, a driveway.
And so no permanent structures.
No,
Usually what
no
LaJoyce-
permanent structures at all under any iteration of the development plan.
Okay, so if it's private, if it's public, Sewage and Water Board usually maintain utilities, but if it's going to be private, it's not, won't be underneath the maintenance for Sewage and Water Board. So that's what I'm trying to get understand exactly what was being proposed.
We would not be requesting any private utilities be paid for by Sewage and Water Board, but if there is a public line there, we could certainly provide a servitude to allow for Sewage and Water Board access and maintenance if they wanted to keep, if you want to keep a public utility line in that vicinity. Is it
Okay.
just sewer?
If you're planning on developing, which you need sewer water in that location?
Yeah, and I think, so short is we would need sewer and water, but I don't believe we would need them in that location. While we don't have a full plan, I suspect we would serve it from Farragut.
Service from Farragut. Where is Farragut?
Yeah, and sometimes the scale on this drawing is difficult to look at the size of this, but this is really a massive, it really is a massive estate-sized parcel.
Farragut is here. So would these lots, do these lots 1 through 7, for example, also belong to the property owner?
Yep, 100%. All of those would be re-subdivided into one lot of
So,
record.
all right, so then essentially it would front on Farragut still. I mean, it's not a Farragut address now. So LaJoyce, I guess their service of water and sewer for the building that's there now comes from Farragut.
Yeah, and I would say this, to the extent that any of the departments or agencies see a utility for this stretch of land, and there's an alternative acquisition method for the developer to include it in property such as a lease, that could certainly be workable because he doesn't plan to erect any structures, but it really just feels like this was no longer needed for public purpose. And for him to be able to incorporate it into his development pattern would be his preferred path forward and pay the city for the property. So if it truly is not needed for public purpose, he would absolutely prefer the acquisition option. If it was needed or some potential future utilization that doesn't come out of this PAC meeting or something else, but if there is some reason that the public wants to maintain rights and hopefully a servitude would accomplish that. If it doesn't, we could still look at a lease. But his goal is to acquire that property and incorporate it into the development plan.
Well, I think that sewer probably would be servicing 126, 127, and it may, I'm not exactly sure how far down, but it's not the whole Sioux Street. So it's the portion that if it's serving some of those lots, that part wouldn't be able to be a sale of those sewer that's serving those lots.
And we definitely not looking to purchase the city sewer or privatize it, but certainly provide a servitude to allow the rights to continue.
Okay. So what additional information we need, Jennifer?
I think that's helpful. Sounds like we have everything we need to move along here. We'll vote on it later, I guess.
Do we need do we need a survey, or is that part of the process? I'm not exactly sure. But
yeah, I mean, we're going to need a survey specific to the unconstructed portion here at some point. Do you need that before it comes to Planning Commission, Paul?
I would need it at least during the analysis to get final determination from Sewage and Water Board as to what they need, whether it be a full width servitude or whatever.
Okay, so basically, presuming that there's a motion of no objection today and it moves forward to the full Planning Commission, at that point, we would need a survey, Mike.
Got it.
Of the area to be acquired.
Got it.
yeah, yes, make sure all the utilities are shown.
Yes, there should be a utility survey. We've run into that problem before where someone has kind of brought us another type of survey that doesn't show utilities. So just, yeah, utilities should be shown.
And Public Works, is there any drainage facilities within this area we need to be concerned about?
No, we don't see anything.
Then maybe one final question. Is this building sort of a grant? I think you said Gatsby X. So it's
Yeah.
like a historic structure that is in
Histor-
very bad condition.
Yeah, it's been stabilized that it doesn't fall down. But we got it through the SHPO and NPS certification process, so it has its part one, that it's eligible. Interestingly enough, I learned something new on this one, that even though it's a great old structure, if it's not typical of the historic archetype in that neighborhood, it doesn't always qualify for historic tax credits. So we had a pretty robust back and forth with SHPO on this. But this one will be renovated with both state and federal historic tax credits. It's a grand estate size lot. And the seminal question that we've had before BBSA for a few months is that ground floor, is it a former raised basement, or was that ground floor occupied or occupiable in its history? We actually found some interesting newspaper articles listing the property from half a century ago about its former utilization. So we're working with BBSA and we have to go back to them on potential flood proofing of the ground floor and non-residential use down there. So, and then the zoning change would be an HUMU with a conditional use. And it's a big parcel, so we don't think it's a spot zone, but certainly anything in a residential neighborhood is slow and steady. So we've done a bunch of engagement, which has kind of slowed a little bit lately, but we need to circle back to the neighbors again to make sure everyone continues to be on board and kind of give them an updated development plan.
And I have one more thing. Like, please show the limits, I guess, of the area.
On the survey?
Yes, is that something that can be shown?
Going to be a boundary and a utilities survey, yes.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
We'll need to know the square footage, and eventually we're gonna need an appraisal and all of that.
Yes, and then Sewage and Water Board, we'll further review and if there anything else that information that we need or what needs to be done, we'll get back with you.
Thank you.
So it looks like we're about ready to go on. You know, I think I viewed this house back when I was shopping for a home for myself, and
It's really cool looking.
realized what the condition was like. But you know, one thing, Mike, I'm sure you probably exploring all sorts of avenues, but you know, the museum, it might be a possibility, or a cultural facility is something that's allowed in a residential area.
Yep.
Sort of
Yep.
like
Thank you.
What's the Degas House, for example.
It's like it
All right.
needs a lot of work.
Yes. All right, so I'm going to then move on to item number 2, which is a request for the sale of a portion of North Robertson Street between St. Ferdinand and Press Street, unconstructed. The railroad, the Great Alabama Southern Railroad, Norfolk Southern, in the 3rd Municipal District, previously on the agenda on March 4th, 2020. And give me a second, I will pull up the attachment.
Is Mr. Baudet on the line?
I don't see any one with that name. I think the only non-named person is Tracy.
Okay, well, I'm happy to kind of try to refresh everybody's memory about this again. We had actually, we had looked at this back in 2020. And at the time, Mr. Baudet was looking at both North Robertson and North Claiborne here And there's overpasses on both sides. But we're talking about the city-owned surface streets leading up to the overpasses. And I know there were some issues that came up with Claiborne, and I know there's been some efforts to clear a homeless encampment on North Claiborne, and some facilities, I guess, to help clean up that area that were installed on the North Claiborne side. So Mr. Baudet has changed his request, and he wants to renew the discussion of pursuing North Robertson, which of course Press Street doesn't exist. This is the plat, but Press Street doesn't exist there. And we had a conversation about that, not really that's currently occupied by railroad. It's essentially at this point. And he has a JUA for the area under the North Robertson overpass. He has produced a JUA with the DOTD for that area underneath. And I think he has the goal in mind really of closing that North Robertson dead end, and then really probably, and I hate speaking for him when he's not here, but essentially fencing it off he owns many of the lots in this square, and has some sort of bigger plan that I can confirm with him in an email. And I'm sorry that he is not here today, but I know he had, a commercial idea that he was working on that he thought it would be beneficial to include the area that's the subject of the JUA under North Robertson overpass. And so again, this time we're just talking about North Robertson specifically, where it dead ends here at Press, which is really the railroad. I think we had passed a motion of no objection, but because so much had been going on with what was happening at North Claiborne, and because so much time has passed, I kind of wanted to touch base, probably mainly with DPW here, as to whether there were, any concerns with this. And then we do, of course, have the issue of the area under North Robertson is state. So is the JUA enough to get us in a place to move forward, or does it simply not work because we don't have common ownership? And if that's so, I'd like to kind of give a definitive answer here.
What is a JUA? I'm sorry.
Yes, thanks. That's
Sorry.
my question.
A JUA is a joint use agreement. It's basically a contract he has with DOTD that says, you can fence this off and use it.
So we're talking about the entirety, not just the undeveloped portion. We're talking or unasphalted portion. We're talking about all of the area under the bridge between St. Ferdinand all the way to quote unquote Press. If you had a Google vision of it, it would be great. But we're talking about everything, including the paved street.
Yes. Including the city paved portion, not the overpass, obviously, which is
Well,
state.
no. And so who maintains that bridge? Lewis, is that DPW or is that
It's the state,
that's a state bridge?
I believe so. Kai, do you know?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure it's state. I don't know, Lewis seems to have phased in and out here. Oh, there he is again.
You sure?
Yeah, there he is. Lewis, North Robertson overpass is state, correct? Surface street.
Robertson overpass is state, yes.
Okay, so, but we're talking about the surface street that runs along, the side of the overpass.
I'd say there's no absolute way of knowing, we usually default to it's DOTD, but
Mhm.
sometimes they've come back at us and said, it's not ours. It's
In this
different
case, I have emails where they've said it's the cities, the surface street, North Robertson, not the overpass, the part that's shown here,
Right.
alongside the buildings.
Yeah, I mean, you almost have to get it from them.
From
It's
TD.
kind of whatever they think.
Well, I'm saying they think it's ours, so
Okay, you asked them about it.
yes.
Okay.
And the area under the overpass is DOTD, right?
Correct.
Okay.
There is not common ownership on both sides. And I think that's really the problem. But I wanted to know if there's other problems.
I'm sorry I'm having trouble pulling up the aerial on the property viewer.
This is
No problem. We really appreciate your efforts here, Paul.
Look at that. I
sorry.
have it on. It's not coming up.
Can't you just Google it?
Yeah, I like property viewer because you can see the lots, but let me do Google in this case.
Oh, could you show the area that they want to buy?
Yeah, so it's Robertson is here,
Uh-huh.
and here's St. Ferdinand, and here's it popped up, and here's Press. So it's
Right.
right in that area. Is it?
They wanna
It's
buy
not
the
the area
surface.
underneath the interstate, right? Or is it?
It's
Or
the area
not the
adjacent.
interstate?
It's adjacent to this. So you've got an area under the overpass, and then you have a surface street that's adjacent to the overpass. We're
Like
talking
right
about,
where the
Yeah.
On the
cursor is?
lakeside.
yeah.
Oh, lakeside. Okay.
And so the DOTD is willing to sell used all their portion, and we're only talking about our little bitty portion.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think we can, right?
Why
Can you
not?
pull a street view up? That'll be helpful.
On Google,
I think I'm
yeah,
trying
I
to pull it up on my desktop, but
I can do it on Google. Property viewer doesn't have a street view. It has a building view.
Well, but I mean, you can see that there's a paved area here next to the buildings. That's the area that we're talking about.
oops.
It's- All right, one moment. I am going to switch to Google Street View. Is this the right side?
Yep.
Can't tell.
This is definitely the lake side. Is the lake side the right side?
Yes, the lakeside.
So yeah, you see this building if you drive over the Claiborne
It's like they got
overpass.
their own DIY gate up anyway. Did you see that? When you were
Here?
facing the other way? No, when
Turn
you were
around.
facing the other way.
Well, is it the other side
No.
by the wall? No.
See the gate?
Okay, it's on this side.
You know, he owns the Mr. Baudet's group owns this buildings on this side.
So he pulls these gates closed?
Oh, I haven't asked him about that because I haven't looked at them before, but that looks a little self-helpy there.
It looks like it must be the purpose of that.
Yes, it does. Hmm. What about a long-term lease that would match the term of the joint use agreement with the state? Would that be a better solution from DPW's perspective?
I don't. I don't think we'd have an issue. I mean, I do kind of wonder. I mean, there is a North Robertson Street on the other side, isn't there?
There is.
Technically supposed to be accessible.
You mean over here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
on the river side of the street.
Yeah, there is.
but I thought we were talking about that piece as well. Or where does the state stop?
Oh man,
Yeah,
it
are they
won't let me
leasing
go
up
under
to
the
that
bridge.
fence?
I think he doesn't own on the riverside. He doesn't own the adjacent property at all. He owns the property that's adjacent to the lakeside.
Is that something DOTD considers under their highway or something? I mean, we can't just leave that piece, I wouldn't think. Or maybe we can, I don't know.
I
Did you-
see what you're saying.
Did you say something about closing this off or something, or?
I mean, he would like to close it off.
Well, if the state, let me see. So is the state okay with him closing it off?
Yeah, that's a good question,
'Cause
LaJoyce. All I
what
know
if-
is given him a use agreement for the area underneath. We could go back to them and say, you know, do you have an objection, you know, to us disposing of this? And they may say yes because they need access for repairs. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I could see that.
But also there's he's pointing at that side, there's a sewer and a water in the street, so I'm not exactly sure where those two buildings are service on, because I wasn't exactly sure what area are we talking about. And there's also drainage in that part of the street.
Sewage and water board drainage on the lakeside,
Well,
or is it
DPW.
DPW? All right, so it's DPW drainage.
it's
Is
two
he a-
12-inch.
Does he own that whole square? Do you know?
Yes, for the most, yes, except for that weird piece that the city owns on the Claiborne side.
And so the question is DOTD, what DOTD is giving them, does that go all the way to the property on the riverside? Like, is that DOTD's to give, or is that some other city piece?
I think that's another city piece, honestly. And I think the JUA just covers the area under the underpass. So I get what you're saying, Louis, about us orphaning that other direction of North Robertson, for lack of a better explanation. But I mean, they're
It's
both.
just kind of a weird space if he fences against, if he fences like to the edge of the overpass and there's just this 10-foot, empty strip.
From what I understand, it's also a controversial area.
Care to elaborate, Tika?
So cryptic.
What's the controversy? The homeless encampments? No comment.
I don't know.
All right,
There's
so
some
nobody
wild shows in
knows.
that building. Yeah, it seems like we'd have to give, like, we would be giving the use or I'm okay with the long-term lease. I think we'd be giving that long-term lease. We'd have to give it all the way to that property. And I don't know if that's okay with y'all or not.
No, I don't think it would be. I think you could make a distinction. Why don't we table this one until I can get a better site plan and a better idea of what he's trying to do? Because clearly I'm not explaining it or doing it justice. So let's just table this and I will try to get a more specific site plan and circulate it by email for comment.
So is this the portion where was it 2,800? I don't know if I'm seeing these numbers. Was it 2,829? Is that area right there?
That's 28, 29 there.
Okay, is that the portion from
Yeah,
St. Ferdinand, the whole street? Okay,
that's what we were looking at on the
okay.
street view. And I guess if it was a property disposition, I don't know if these are all one lot now, but again, you'd have to re-subdivide to make sure they were all had access from a public street.
Yeah, and that's also sewer and water, so I would have to see, well, you say it's one person that owns those buildings?
I'm gonna pull up the name of it. It's a company, but yeah, it's one entity.
Okay, and I would have to see whether, well, okay. Where the house connections are.
It seems like it's problematic from a number of different perspectives. So
I mean, the one thing I'd probably say is that if DOTDs, I don't even know if it's DOTDs to give that kind of U-turn thing underneath there. You know, like, I don't think that's right. Like, I think DOTD should only be leasing stuff inside, inside the curves
mhm.
under there. Because we got to be able to have access between our two streets.
I don't disagree with that, but it seems like he's
I mean, what I'm getting at is that if DOTD were to give them that kind of median opening, we'll call it, or the U-turn piece,
mhm.
which I think is really DPW. If you were to close that off, then that would already, that would have already orphaned that Riverside piece anyway.
Yeah. He actually does own the other side, so he might be willing to do the entire thing. He does own, when we look on the other side of the overpass at these lots below, they're all in the same holding company at this point. That entire vacant block, that's, yeah.
And what about the stuff on the corner at North Robertson and St. Ferdinand?
That's St. Ferdinand Holdings also. It's all under the same company.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if it's all under the same company, I don't have a problem with a long-term lease all the way to the St. Ferdinand right away.
It looks like it also is already all one lot.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Although there's some lots that are adjacent to it that are part of the railroad. But I guess one might say they're already not fronting a public street.
It's definitely rail yard over there
Yeah.
when we look at the aerial. So, okay. Why don't I do this? Why don't I get him to kind of at least give us a more of a rough site plan so that we can address some of these more specific questions. You know, but I almost think with the utilities there that the leasing option might be better from our perspective, but I'm happy to continue talking about a sale as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to do the lease just because, I don't know, it just seems like DOT is going to need that. We're going to need that right of way just for bridge maintenance and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
there can't
I
be
don't
no
know
way
how
to
to-
access it. We can't
Yeah,
sell
how
right
do you-
up to the edge of a DOT overpass.
I think that's the issue. That's what I was getting at, but
Doesn't the building need to have, it doesn't need to have public access? It would just be like a private roadway that had to be maintained like that.
well, they would both front on St. Ferdinand.
Okay. This is for a new development.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble remembering what the business plan is, but yes, there's some kind of,
They're gonna redevelop it,
yeah,
tear
I mean,
everything down,
it's
sort of thing.
something new is coming in. I can't remember what it is, and I
Okay.
apologize for not getting the
No, that's
applicant.
fine. I didn't know if they were keeping it as all these buildings or not. Okay.
Well, I mean, the other side that he owns below between Villery and Robertson is totally vacant. So I'm thinking he's got something in mind.
Mhm.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right, so we're going to move on to item number 3, which is consideration of a request for acceptance of a donation to the City of New Orleans by 1400 Barone LLC of a portion of ground in the First Municipal District, formerly known as Thalia Street, between Carondelet and Barone, adjacent to squares 241 and 240A, for future dedication as a public right-of-way. And I shall pull up the attachment. I may have accidentally closed that email. So Mike, why don't you go ahead if this is you, and I'll pull it up
Hey.
while you're speaking.
So thank you all. So we had our major re-subdivision approved for the former Browns Dairy. This is the main 3.76 acre tract. There's a couple other folks on the former Browns Dairy, Gulf Coast Housing Partnership across the street. And then on the corner of MLK, Pat Swilling has a few lots. Those are not related. But this is the main 3.76 acre tract. The city a couple decades ago declared the portion of Thalia Street between Carondelet and Barone no longer needed for public purpose, and it's been fenced off ever since. At this point, the former Browns Dairy has been completely demolished. Over the next 10 days, the demolition contractor Pipeworks is finishing taking off the remaining debris and putting down river sand. This is the major re-subdivision that's now been approved by City Planning Commission. We have not yet recorded it, working with city planning and thank you to Real Estate Records, Jennifer. I saw your office just sent an email a few minutes ago, which was our last approval prior to submitting a plan to record the resub. Palmisano Contractors has been hired to reconstruct the roadway. They got their first street cut permit from DPW approved just before the storm. They're on site right now. We have a brand new water line going in, a completely reconstructed roadway, and then some point repairs and tie-ins on the sewer line and point repairs on the drainage line. Sidewalks are going in as well. So we're now commencing the process to donate this street to the city once it's complete. We anticipate the construction to take about 60 additional days. We're tracking about November 15th to complete this one block of roadway. And one interesting fun fact, I always wonder the cost of a roadway. This one was pretty competitively bid. Stuff DPW deals with every day, but $601,000 for one block of roadway.
Right.
That's
expensive,
with
Louis.
utilities or without?
That's with a brand new water line and sewer tie-ins and point repairs, but not a brand new sewer and not a brand new drainage. But that does
Yeah,
include
right.
sidewalks.
Does not include
Yeah,
sidewalks.
we kind of tapped out the contractor pool with all the FEMA work, so prices are about double right now.
Wow. Thank you, I think.
Every time we bid, they're now twice our estimate. So we had to stop bidding.
So is that a private street? Thalia?
It
For
has
the-
been closed. It was closed and it was part of the dairy site for many years. So currently it's private, but they're going to be giving it back to the city and reopening it as a public street. That's the proposal.
Quick question. I know you've talked about sidewalks, and sewer lines and water lines. And Paul, maybe you can help me with this. Street trees and all that, would that wait on the development of the actual lots, or how is that handled?
Yeah, I think Mike can answer that.
Yeah, so we, rather than putting in street trees that would get destroyed during the construction of the lots post re-subdivision, we're putting a requirement on the plans. This was a proviso during our major resub to mandate the street trees be put in along with the redevelopment of each of the lots once construction was complete. So that becomes a requirement for a certificate of occupancy on each of the lots individually being constructed.
Okay, you do know that all of that has to be approved by the Department of Parks and Parkways. So that should be noted.
We got it. And we did get an approved plan from Danny on that, stamped.
Thank you.
May I ask one question process-wise? If this
Sure.
moves forward today and we go through the process for the city to accept it, what are the next steps after today?
Okay, so next steps after today, first you've got to go to full planning commission with Paul. And then they approve it as an acquisition by the city. Then we've got to run the acquisition through ordinance. And also the acceptance and rededication is part of that ordinance. After the ordinance is complete, we'll then run the active donation and acceptance as a regular contract through our BRAS system. However, and this is where I'm going to kick it to Louis, I think there's a 1-year warranty period for our acceptance. Is that, I'm not familiar with that part of it, so I'm going to ask Louis to talk about that.
Yes.
It's
So
a
the 1 year
you,
warranty.
you call it a 1-year warranty period, right?
Right. So, I
So-
mean, typically that'd mean you post a bond. Now, I don't know what y'all have with Palmisano, but, you know, if we were working with Palmisano, there would be a bond that would be held for a year, basically.
And basically, I guess I would be waiting to get, there's like a letter that we get from DPW that suggests that we're good to go on the formal acceptance of title.
Right.
So we could actually complete the transaction of donation and then have a 1-year warranty period after the donation. We would not have to hold up the actual donation for the warranty period to run. Because the
I
bond,
think that, yeah, I think that it would be a 1-year, you know, we could probably do it 1 year from the date of substantial completion. So even if it were, like, I mean, if you have a private street that's already built and then DPW is accepting it, I don't think there would be a 1-year warranty. I think it more has to do with it being constructed, like when it's constructed. So in this case, you know, we would set that date basically from substantial completion. And what would happen is, say you completed the work before it was completely transferred. You know, you should still get us to go out there and do the inspection with your engineer, with Batcher, and then you know, that way everyone's on board with it, and we can provide a letter saying that it meets DPW requirements. You know, which is what you're going to want to see anyway to accept it from Palmisano.
absolutely. Okay, that's helpful.
I think the two things can be running in parallel. I think they can be running on parallel tracks.
Okay.
I mean, we can certainly keep this moving. I would say, you know, right now we're certainly months away from having to check in with DPW again.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And LaJoyce, Kyle Bro knows sort of more about the new utilities that are going in. If you want to touch base with him, that might be a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually spoke to him right before the storm about this. And, you know, just trying to figure out, they did want some kind of servitude, or they were thinking they needed some kind of servitude. You know, but I think we worked through that with them, Mike, that was already there, and there's
The
already,
servitude is in place.
there's currently a servitude in place, so this is just a question of it coming back into the city's books as public property, and also being rededicated as Thalia.
Jennifer, just one note on your earlier description of the process. I'm looking at an old email from Teresa Beecher, who said that council action is not needed for acquisitions. Not something we need to worry about today, but
That's not my understanding, so I would have to look at Teresa's reasoning there.
yeah. I can forward it to you. It's from 2018. I printed it out and put it on my bulletin board for future reference, but I'm not sure she gives the reasoning, but I'll send it to you.
I know she's not here anymore though, so I can't really reach out to her, but
No. To check with Adam.
everything else,
so.
we've been running it through ordinance process and having the council authorize the acquisition.
Yeah. Well, guess it can't hurt.
Well, hey, Mike, if there's a way to avoid that extra step, we're happy to look into it. Paul is suggesting that I'm wrong, so. um,
I wouldn't put it like that.
I'll look into it. Happy to look into it, but I thought we needed the authorizing ordinance. I think for the rededication specifically.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, I bet that's it.
And then, Paul, we're going to bring up the name change request for the street.
I don't
I'm
think so.
joking. We are not. We're not proposing name changes.
For just that one block, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
My head would explode.
Right. The Mike Sherman Memorial stretch of Parkway.
That would mean I was dead, though.
Brown's Velvet Dairy.
We've gotten
Road.
rid of that requirement that you be memorial, so.
I appreciate everyone's help on this. Here for any questions. Thank you.
All right, if anyone doesn't have any more questions, we go on to the last item, non-CPC item, consideration of a request for a servitude of air rights for a balcony over La Perouse Street right-of-way adjacent to the 3rd Municipal District, Square 1194. The municipal address is 2336 and 2338 La Perouse. I shall pull up the attachment. It's going to be well, do you want the photo or the survey, Jen?
I would say
Go ahead, Ashley.
I would say the photo. That might help better explain what's going on.
All right, start with the photo.
Okay, so basically, they're coming in to do a resub, and I had to check all of their encroachments for historic value, and of course that balcony, that added balcony, came in question as not historic, and I wanted to bring it to you guys because the applicant wants to do a servitude for it, but I'm not sure if it's up to code because I did not see where they apply for a permit. So I just wanted to get the committee's input on it structurally.
I'll chime in. I think that for these things, a permit review is necessary with the proper plans. Usually we
It was never done. It was never done. We don't have a permit from this. So Kai, it came in as a subdivision request, and
Okay.
the encroachment on public airspace was, shown on that subdivision plan, which caused us to look and say, what is this and should they be paying? But since there's a very real possibility this wasn't permitted. I'm not saying I know one way or the other, but I guess we're just trying to figure out what to do here. I think we should require them to enter into an agreement, and I guess Ashley could reach back out to him and ask him for plans. Does that sound like a plan, Ashley?
Yeah, definitely. If I can ask for plans for the balcony.
I mean, what we're gonna do, I guess, is on the.
I lost Jennifer.
Well, Ashley, do you have anything more to say on that? Because if not, we could just go to recess and hopefully get Jennifer back by then.
Yeah, I can request the plans and get those to DPW or Kai, and we'll just go from there. If he's the only one that had a comment.
That would go to DPW. I believe a new construction permit, but the plans is I can send it to me. I'll forward to them.
Ashley, have you checked with safety and permits to see if they ever issued anything?
I didn't see anything on there for it. I didn't see an issue permit for that.
Well, this would be, I think, older than anything that's going to show up in Llama. And I believe they do keep records of older permits. I know that technically this is partial control. They should have gotten a permit from our office in addition to safety and permits. I don't see any permits in our file, and as of the last survey, which was 1995, it was already present. But safety and permits would have records. I don't know how far back, but
Okay,
if
I'll
they
check.
ever, you know, they should still have it.
Okay, I'll check with safety and permits.
All right, I think with that, we're gonna go to recess. And because I didn't have the public comment form on the agenda until today, I'm gonna give it a little bit longer and say a 10-minute recess. So we will reconvene at 3:29. So feel free to turn off your microphone and video until then. Time is now 3:29. So I'd like to call the Planning Advisory Committee back to order. We have no public comments on any of the items. So I'm going to do a roll call of the members I believe are present still. City Planning is here. Real Estate and Records is here. Parks and Parkways.
Oh, yeah.
Tika's here. Department of Public Works,
Yeah, we're here.
HDLC,
Here.
Sewage and Water Board,
Here.
all right. So we have a quorum. Is there any other members of the committee that are here that that I didn't mention? All right, so first item to vote on is the request for the sale of the paper street named So Lane between Ruck Street and Copernicus that is adjacent to 2020 Farragut Street in Fifth Municipal District in the Prop Camas subdivision, Square One. So my notes are that there is a sewer line and that we will need a boundary and utilities survey. Would someone like to make a motion, or are there any further questions for the applicant?
I'd like to make a motion.
Go for it.
I'd like to make a motion of no objection, subject to further review by CPC, Real Estate, Sewage and Water Board, and DPW.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call. City Planning Commission, yes. Parks and Parkways,
Yes.
Department of Public Works,
Yes.
HDLC,
Yes.
Sewage and Water Board,
Yes.
and Real Estate and Records.
Yes.
It's unanimous, 6-0. No objections, subject to further review by CPC, Real Estate and Records, Sewage and Water Board, and DPW.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Next item, a request for sale of a portion of North Robertson Street between St. Ferdinand and Press Street. Do we need a motion to table that, or are you sort of withdrawing it?
No, I'd like to make a motion to defer it to the October 20 meeting, subject to producing some specific site plans and a summary of the details of the JUA with DOTD.
On just a note on the October meeting is that I may like to move that to October 27th unless someone else wants to be the chairman. Well, actually, I can be the chairman on the 20th. I just can't put together the agenda because I will be out the previous week. Unless, of course, I got everything far in advance.
Oh, you're going, well, how about this? We can say that we're going to get you everything in advance before the week that you're out. And if there's anything else that needs to be done, I will take it on so that we can keep the 10/20 date.
Okay.
Because as you know, people are sometimes waiting for permits on these things. So, and we've been giving out that 10/20 date. So I'd rather keep it if we can, but we'll do everything that we can to be early. And also I'll make myself available to do whatever needs to be done to get it out.
Okay. Thank you.
But going back to North Robertson, I just want to make a motion to defer it to the 10:20 meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by HDLC. Roll call, CPC, yes. Parks and Parkways,
Yes.
DPW. Is that a yes?
Yes.
HDLC,
Yes.
Sewage and Water Board, LaJoyce,
Yes.
and Real Estate and Records.
Yes.
Passes 6-0, deferred to October 20th. And final item to vote on is the request for acceptance of a donation to the city by 14 Barone LLC for a portion of ground, the First Municipal District, formerly known as Dahlia Street, between Carondelet and Barone.
Great. I would like to make a motion of no objection, subject to further review by CPC, DPW, Sewage and Water Board, and Real Estate.
Second.
Seconded by Public Works. Roll call. CPC, yes. Parks and Parkways,
Yes.
Public Works,
Yes.
HDLC,
Yes.
Sewage and Water Board,
Yes.
and Real Estate and Records.
Yes.
We're in full agreement on everything today. And this brings us to the end of our meeting.
Thank you.
No one has anything else to say. I shall declare the meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, everybody. See you October.
Thank you, Paul.
20th.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.